30 plus creepy, personal horror stories. According to Reddit. I'm pulling from multiple lists here, so we're starting at number 12 on the first list. My grandfather owned a small house on a lake in New Hampshire. One time when I was around 7 years old, I was playing on the dock when I slipped and fell into the water. I say I slipped, but it felt like a push. Not sure why, but my body just gave up, like it completely shut down. Also, I went straight to the bottom, only 10 feet or so, and was not floating up. I opened my eyes underwater, and there was a little girl there with me. She was looking right at me and said as clear as day, "Not now," and pushed me to the surface. Somehow, I was up on the dock faster than possible, as in standing on the dock. I was too small to be able to pull myself up and out on my own. Fun fact, the previous owner had a daughter who drowned in the very same spot. Also had a cousin who I would share a room with when we stayed over. On stormy nights, he'd have panic attacks because he swore he saw a little girl in a dress standing on the dock looking at the house. Number 11. Happened when I was in high school. Was brushing my teeth one night, felt a cat rubbing against my leg while my only two cats were both up on the sink, watching me brush my teeth. Looking down while still clearly feeling it, and seeing my pajama pants leg moving like my leg was being rubbed, nothing was there. Number 10. I was 22, getting ready at 6:30 a.m. for a baking class as I was in culinary school. I had the distinct thought that I need to grab my chef's coat in my closet. The next second it was laying out neatly on my bed. I have no recollection of taking it out. It freaked me out a little bit. A couple of years later, when I was 25, I'm waiting tables and I'm holding an empty glass under an iced tea carafe. Carafe? Nah. A has the dash over the E. Pokemon taught you that. The next second I'm holding a full glass that already had condensation on it, and my coworker is asking me if I'm okay. They might have been seizure events, but those are the only two instances of memory lapses that I've ever had. It's really scary when it happens. Number 9. When I was really young, I used to spend the night at my cousin's house. We've grown apart since, but I still remember that there was always something really creepy about the place. We lived in Florida, and they lived in the backwoods areas, always in some rundown trailer. Which means total darkness at night, and quite frankly, it was always unsettling. So, one particular night, that for some reason sticks out in my mind, me and her were up on the top of her bunk bed, just chatting, and she brings up her imaginary friend. Now, imaginary friends are pretty common at our ages, but hers always seemed unusually serious, While I claimed to hang out with Pokemon and dragons, hers was more like actual people with fairly detailed personalities. The only one that I can remember the name of was the main person. I believe his name was Thumper or something like that. She told me about how he got jealous and possessive of her and didn't like it when she ignored him, but she was ignoring him right now because he deserved it. I was looking right at her as she was saying this, and out of nowhere we heard a sudden smacking sound. Looking over, we saw that a balloon in the room, one of those foil ones that you can get at Walmart, had suddenly gotten shoved against the wall and had a foot-shaped indentation in the side of it. There was no way she could have thrown anything at it, and no one had entered the room. Something appeared to have kicked that balloon across the room. To this day, I don't know if it was a stray gust of wind or if Thumper really did get pissed at us, but either way, it really freaked me out. There's always seeming to be a lot of haunted nonsense going on around her, and she talked about spirits a lot. Now as adults, we don't interact too much, but I'll still remember all that stuff and wonder if she does too. I hope Thumper learned to fucking chill. Number 8. I swallowed a piece of a Tic Tac candy wrapper when I was 10 years old. Fast forward 10 years, I was sleeping over at my friend's house. I wake up in the middle of the night with something in my nose. I went to the bathroom, turned on the lights. Out comes a huge blood clot in my nostril, basically clogged. I cut open the blood clot with my fingernail and find the same brand of wrapper from 10 years ago. What the fuck? This apparently happens to other people. Tissue paper, glass, wood, macaroni, cotton, Jesus Lord. Be careful how you eat things. What if something stuck in my nose? Number 7. A while ago during the NHL lockout, I was up at 3 in the morning watching the World Juniors, and I noticed this van pull into my cul-de-sac, which was strange, because I didn't recognize the van because it wasn't any of my neighbors. Then the van stops right in front of my house and 3 people emerge. 2 go into the neighbor's house to my right, and the other comes into my house. They're all dressed in black, and they're going pretty quickly. I was pretty much frozen when I heard his footsteps as he came closer to the door. And then nothing happened. Literally nothing. Punctuate, bitch. The van drove away without anyone hoping back in. What? I never saw the guy leave my doorstep. It was snowing that night, so in the morning I had to go shovel my driveway, and I saw his steps to my front door stop. The footprints stopped at the door. There were no tracks leaving the front door, nor were there any else. Nor where. You mother... I got a horror story for y'all right now. This time, it's personal. Number 6. In the house I grew up in, every few weeks I'd see a woman in white walk down the hallway. I always had some explanation as to what it could be, and never told anyone about it. Years later, after my brother and I had both left home, He asked if I had seen her. I still remember every detail, and I still get chills from it. Number 5 is deleted. Good thing I started at 12. Number 4. I was home alone one night and decided to take a massive shit. Again, I was alone. I heard someone gagging. Gotta fill our poop entry quota. Number 3. My hometown is mid-sized California city with a large network of bike trails throughout. Though the city is well developed, the trails are wooded and naturey, and they take you through some really secret places of the city. My friend and I were mountain biking on the trails, and we come up to a point where the trail passed under a low overpass. He was in front of me and we were going at a pretty easy pace. As I went through, I felt something like a hand. Oh my
surprise
God. That man just donated 50. Oh my God. The horror. The horror. The stream thanks Fat Man once again for his unstoppable kindness. I'll have to figure out a surprise for Fat Man and that ass. My man. My man. Forgive me. Oh God. Who knows what he intends to horrify the stream with while he keeps you all horrified. I'll continue. My friend and I were mountain biking. My friend and I were mountain biking on the trails, and we came up to a point where the trail passed under a low overpass. He was in front of me and we were going at an easy pace, but as I went through, I felt something like a hand grab at my right ankle. I looked down thinking something was caught on me, but there was nothing. I spent the next 10 seconds or so quiet, thinking about what could have caused it, maybe a hitch in my chain. When my buddy spoke up and asked if I had felt something weird when we were going under the road, without mentioning what I felt, I asked him what it was. He said it felt like a hand pull on his right ankle. I told him something like, "What the fuck, yes, I felt that too," and we were stunned. We fucking hustled out of that trail. I've been back through that way a few times since, but I never felt it again. Huh. Bedhead in the stream chat says, "My friend is currently watching The Big Bang Theory. Here's hoping that we can find an entry that's scarier than that." As we continue up the first of 3 lists, we arrive at number 2. The front door of my parents' house opens itself. It's something that has happened many times, and everyone in the house has seen it do this. If it just opened, we'd assume it wasn't shut the whole way, but no. The doorknob turns itself all the way around and the door opens. In fact, I and my stepsister were talking a few weeks back, and it did it right in front of us. The creepiest was one night around 3 a.m. I'd gotten up to use the bathroom. We always lock the door at night, which is directly across from the bathroom. The door was closed and locked when I went to pee. When I came back out, the door was wide open, which means whatever turns the doorknob also turned the lock. This phenomenon, along with other things that have happened, cabinet doors slamming shut, light switches turning themselves off, footsteps in the basement when no one is there, it really makes me wonder. Then one night 5 years ago, I saw a thing for the first time. I woke up suddenly around 3 a.m. and saw a black, tall shape at the end of my bed. It casually glided across the room and disappeared. I have no idea what lives in their house. It's never struck me as malicious, but sometimes there's a feeling that you're being watched, and it's all pretty creepy. Why did Fat Man say who wants to see something really scary and then not say anything? What a yutz. I love that guy. Number 1. When I was little, I loved recording my own voice on the family tape recorder. What I would do was that I would record my voice really slowly, set the recorder to copy and record that at double speed to the secondary cassette deck, basically making me sound like a Smurf or a chipmunk speaking at a normal tempo. One time, when I was in the kitchen playing around with it, the rest of the family hanging around, I did the same thing. I ended a sentence saying, "Ak, alla de andra barnen," and all the other children. Dubbed, recorder played back, the whole thing sounded completely normal, and said in my childish smurfed voice, "and all the other children," with a second of silence followed by the harshest and deepest man's voice that I've ever heard to that point, saying the same thing in a mocking voice. It scared the shit out of all of us, and no one can to this day explain it. Being older now, I realize it's probably a very strange artifact of overdubbing, magnetic tapes and such, but there are qualities that I still don't quite understand and can't explain, specifically how it could speak in a normal speed of voice, because the easy explanation would be that it somehow slowed down my voice, darkening the pitch, and still got all deep. Bing bong. That's the first of the 3 lists. Let's travel on to the next. Number 10 on this list. I'm a lover of horror, supernatural, creepy things. Spent a lot of my teenage and childhood years ghost hunting. I hunted with my friends in random graveyards, rundown neighborhoods, abandoned factories, etc. That being said, we never really encountered anything out of the ordinary, other than psychosomatic ghosts that our overactive imaginations created. Despite loving horror, I didn't really believe that any sort of corporeal ghosts were real. When I was 15, I traveled to Europe with my family. We stayed in Natal, Germany, in a small inn for a few nights. My parents had a double on the 2nd floor, my sisters had the double bedroom next to theirs, and I was lucky enough to have a single room all to myself at the far end of the hall. When we went to check in to our rooms, as soon as I entered the hallway our rooms were in, I remember almost feeling as though I walked into a wall of bad energy. I just felt so unnerved and uneasy in that hallway, but I passed it off as an overactive imagination. I slept the first night without any issues other than waking up a few times. The next morning at breakfast, one of my sisters mentioned feeling really uncomfortable in the hallway, almost as if the air was crushing. It unnerved me even more that I wasn't the only one who felt weirded out. Plus, she was an adult at the time, so it further cemented in my head that that wing of the hotel was odd. Later that night, I'm sleeping peacefully when at 2 a.m., I'm woken by something ripping the covers off me and being jerked about 2 feet towards the end of the bed by my ankle. At first I thought someone had broken into my room because when I turned towards what had grabbed me, a huge looming black shape was visible in the darkness, like a man was in my room. I frantically flipped the light on, only to see that there was nothing there. The window was locked from the inside. There was no one in the closet or the bathroom, and my room was also still locked from the inside. I stayed up the rest of the night, scared shitless, playing Cooking Mama on my DS. Next morning, we're at breakfast and my sister mentions that she was up half the night because she thought she saw a person silhouetted against the wall of the room, but when she turned on the light, there was no one there. It was just a bizarre and creepy experience. Well, we checked out the next day, so I didn't get to experience anything after that. But it still freaks me out to this day. Well. Number 9. I was hanging out at my friend's house with her boyfriend. We were watching TV, and she had some unlit tea lights on the top of it. It was an old CRT TV. All of a sudden, 2 of the tea lights fly off the top and slam into opposite walls. She gets up and says, "That's been happening a lot lately." Nigga. Number 8. 6 years ago or so, I was working in a very old fort. It was former British Army. And then later, the Irish Army acquired it. During the British Army's time in it, a young soldier was to be court-martialed for having an affair with an officer's wife. But before he hung himself upstairs in the officer's mess. So during my time working there, I wouldn't go to the mess on my own. I could always feel sadness there. One day I came into work with a bitch of a hangover and fell asleep in the mess. I was woken by someone shoving my shoulder to wake me. My boss was just about to walk in the door, and I'm convinced that the young soldier woke me. Boy. Number 7. I was a complete skeptic before this incident. My wife and I rented a secluded small bedroom, 2-bedroom cabin in the Mount Rainier, Washington area for a hiking adventure. Upon arriving, my wife walked into the house and said there was nowhere she was sleeping in one of the bedrooms because there was bad energy in the room. To her defense, it was a bit creepy. Weird doll dress on the wall as a decoration. Rickety rocking chair in the corner. Oddly placed door that was locked but presumably led to an attic. Once we got settled, we discovered a cabin journal with entries from a past guest. There were multiple terrifying entries. My husband woke up to the smell of bacon and eggs cooking. No one was awake yet. The doll dress in the bedroom is the gateway to hell. We woke last night to the sound of someone walking in the attic. The locked door was unlocked and opened when we woke in the morning. I called BS on all this, telling her I didn't believe any of it. We decided to sleep in the living room, on the floor nonetheless, and close the door to the creepy room for the duration. Yeah, y'all cautious enough not to sleep in that damn room, no. The next night after hiking all day, we were eating and drinking outside at night by fire. A few adult beverages into the evening, I start daring her to go into the bedroom. She was freaked out and wouldn't, but I said there was nothing wrong with the house. I proceeded to go inside to take the challenge of exploring the room more at night. As I entered the hallway, my hand hit the doorknob, and I turned the door handle to push the door inward to enter the room. The door opened about 10 inches and stopped as it hit a chair that was propped up against the door. My mind quickly calculated the logistics of the situation. Door opens inward. Room with only one entrance. Chair on the other side of the door keeping me from entering that was somehow placed there from the inside. I let out a little girly scream, slammed the door shut, played it off to my wife that I was trying to scare her. We stayed the night, and I didn't tell her the real story until the next day when we were in the car driving away. She was pissed. Y'all niggas shouldn't have stayed there that night. Number 6. I lived in this house with a basement, and every time I walked upstairs I would get this weird, creepy goosebumps feeling on my back, or the back of my neck. Didn't make me uneasy to go down the stairs or be in the basement. My craft room was down there, and I spent a lot of time there. After a while, I would have items I was using disappear when I would look away from them. I would search and search, and one day I got frustrated, and to no one in particular, I said, "Ugh, can I please have my scissors back?" I had just looked under the pile. Of new mail, and when I turned my head, there were my scissors on top of the pile. I asked to my neighbor, and she told me that the original owner of the house was a jolly old man who loved to prank people, and that he had fell coming up the stairs one day and died. I think the goosebumps were him trying to tell me to be careful. I would politely ask for it back, and it would appear in a place that I could not have missed it before. When things would disappear, he'd ask for them back. Okay. Number 5. I was in a motorcycle accident a few months back. I broke my spine, needed surgery to fuse several vertebrae. As they brought me in for surgery, I noticed 2 men standing in the corner of the OR, looking not at all surgically clean and entirely out of place. Looking back at it, I later recognized them as my 2 late grandfathers, one of them whom died in the hospital and the other died during a surgery. The reason I know that was my grandfathers was because my parents told me a story about how they were in the hospital food court during my 11-hour surgery, and my dad heard his father telling him that everything was going to turn out all right. He told my mom she wasn't at all surprised because she had heard her father tell her that I was going to be fine, even though this was late and they were the only ones in the dead silent cafeteria. I never told that story before, let alone to the entire world. Number 4. Our last house had a ghost cat in it. Boy, oh boy. We have 2 live cats, a black one who is old and can't jump on anything higher than the couch, and a crazy white cat. I'd often be working around the house and see our black cat at my feet, reach down to pet him, but he wasn't there. After a quick search, I'd find him in an entirely different part of the house, having a snooze. For the longest time, I just assumed it was my eyes playing tricks on me. Then one time, I was at the kitchen sink, doing dishes, and in my peripheral vision, I see our black cat jump onto the counter beside me. I even heard the muffled thump when he landed on the counter and felt a bump on my arm as he headbutted me. He hadn't been able to jump that high in a couple of years, so of course I turned to follow or fully look at him, and nothing. No cat, empty counter. Great story. Number 3. I was staying with a friend in a remote house in Scotland. In the middle of the night, I woke up to go to the toilet, and suddenly it was very, very cold, and I heard someone complain, "They always make these rooms dirty. Always, always. And I'm cleaning all the time, and it's still dirty." It was so cold for a moment, and then it was over. The next morning, I told the house owner that last night it suddenly was very cold in the bedroom. I went to the toilet, and before I could say anything else, he immediately said, "Who have you seen?" That who part sent shivers down my spine. Not what happened, but who have you seen? Later he told me his daughter and son-in-law lived in the very room, and that the son-in-law died in an accident, and he loved to keep the room spotless. Even typing this still sends shivers down my spine. Number 2. I tell this story every time the question is asked, so here it goes. I woke up to get a glass of water in the middle of the night. I passed my dad on the way to the kitchen, asked him something about where he was going. He walked right past me, like he didn't see me or even hear me. And then I got down to the kitchen, and oh my God, my dad was there. Then who did I see upstairs? Then who was phone? And as I held her dying in my arms, I meant to say, "I love you 5 ever." Number 1. Okay. Ugh. God, I hate these. I hate these so much. If you hear stories about Greyfriars Kirkyard in Edinburgh, particularly about it being haunted, I advise you to believe them. I was visiting the city with my boyfriend. We were taking one of the haunted walk tours. Our guide was excellent. She was dressed in all black, very gothic, and was clearly a talented actress. Being 6 foot and 5'10", we towered over the 2 other couples and the 2 hen parties that were on tour with us. Out of respect for them, we stood in the back of the group. When we arrived at the Covenanters prison, or the Covenanters, all right, the Covenanters prison, I thought our tour guide was laying it on wonderfully thick. She seemed genuinely concerned for our safety. She discussed how people get pushed, pulled, scratched, etc. is what you meant to write? She told us that there was no shame in wanting to leave. If we got scared, that she would lead us out. We were having a great time, and then something yanked on the back of my hair. My boyfriend saw me jerk back, and we spun around. But we were at the back of the group. It was impressively strong, and it scared the shit out of me. We continued into a crypt in the Covenanters prison. Again, we stood at the back of the pack, but this time I was a little less happy about it. While our guard talked, I felt another tug on my hair. This one was much weaker than the last one, so I have just caught my hair on my jacket or purse, maybe. I was pretty freaked out. Some of the girls from one of the hen parties were pretty impaired. One girl was standing in front of us. I remember thinking that she was very brave to wear white pants and a light yellow t-shirt to the muddy cemetery on a rainy day. She started jerking her right knee forward at an odd angle, and after a few times she turns around and yells, "Stop fucking kicking me." Shit. My boyfriend and I look at each other, and at another couple standing beside and slightly in front of us. None of us were anywhere near her. Now, this girl was pretty intoxicated, so while I was already freaked out, I was prepared to disregard her until the last kick. I was watching her leg clear as day. She bent her knee forward and gasped, and I saw a muddy footprint appear on the back of her pants. They were bright white, and we all confirmed after the fact that it was a footprint. We could distinguish toes. At this point, I grabbed onto my boyfriend for dear life and held on until the guide was done talking. As soon as she was done, the other couple joined us in running out of the crypt. We all chatted with our tour guide and a couple of co-workers for a while. She told us that our experience is pretty standard there. She was acting when she wasn't acting when she warned us. Well, damn. Sounds like we all want to go out there all of a sudden, baby. We gotta go check it out. The Covenanters prison, huh? This is viral marketing. I don't believe this. Y'all niggas crazy. Y'all niggas out here tripping. This is the cemetery that J.K. Rowling based some characters on. I just wanted to say thank you for all of the kind replies. If you're interested, we took the City of the Dead tour. What? Well, I don't know. Throw in some naked tour guides, and then we got ourselves they gotta be thick too. Can't just be some skinny broad. You know what I'm talking about? Woo! Thought you were gonna make it a list without titties, huh? As we retrieve the final list and start at number 12 because I love biting off more than I can chew. It reads as follows. I was slapped hard while I was asleep. I woke up with my cheek hurting and my ears ringing. I lived alone at the time. But another less creepy time. I remember I was crashing at my uncle's for a couple of months in the summer while he was at work. Sometimes at night I would hear a woman yelling, "Hey, you there?" At first I was very freaked out, but a couple of times during the day, I'd look for the source and try to talk to her. She never replied. I asked my uncle after a few days, and it turns out that it was his pet parrot, or it was the pet parrot of a guy who lived across the hall. I had heard him before, making weird noises and screeching, but never had I ever imagined it could replicate a woman's voice like that. Wait a minute, what is this list? Because these are seeming pretty rooted in reality, and that's not what we were bargaining for here. So this list asks the question, Reddit, what is your creepy story of living alone or being alone in a house? I'm only going to read 5 of these, because odds are they're all going to have rational explanations. Where's the fun in that, right? It's got to be spooky. And then when I drove past them and looked in my rearview mirror, they were gone. I wanted ice in my drink, but all the ice had melted, and then when I picked up my cup, there was ice in there. Oh, shit. Oh, my bing bong. Did you hear the ice? Oh, my God. Number 5. My fiance and I purchased a foreclosed home in a not-so-great neighborhood a few years back. We ignored the area because of the great price, but now realize we were idiots because of things like this. I'm lying in bed, barely awake, while watching TV. Fiance is still at work, so I can't sleep. It's 2 a.m. and I'm barely dozing off to some crime show that was on when I hear scratching at the window. The window was 1 foot away from me while lying in bed, and I remember thinking, damn squirrels. when I heard the squirrel start cursing and mumbling. Then the sound of a screwdriver lifting the window frame starts up. I start screaming bloody murder, that I have a gun and I'm calling the police. The scratching noises stop, and by the time the cops got to my door and searched the yard, there was no one there. Thinking, oh great, they think I'm crazy. I thank them, and as they're walking back to their cruisers, their radios all started going off at once that there was another break-in reported in the neighborhood. The officers go scrambling off, and I slam the door and lock it, once again freaking out. I go get back in bed to wait for my fiance to get home. He calls on his way and wants me to stay on the phone with him until he gets there. I hear loud footsteps on the wooden shed ramp in our backyard and say, "Oh good, you're home," and hang up. Walking to the back door, he called me straight back and told me he still wasn't even in the neighborhood. So once again, I'm calling 911 and losing my shit. He and the cops got there at the same time, searched the yard. Apparently they'd been getting calls all night about some meth heads trying to break in to the same few houses all night with a screwdriver. They'd been one step behind the whole night and had cruisers everywhere. Oh, and the cursing at the window? One of the officers went to the bedroom window and saw the screen removed. The meth whiz had disturbed a huge wasp nest when he took the screen off, and my tiny little wasp defenders saved the day. The wasp isn't a defender. The wasp hangs out with Ant-Man. She's gonna be played by Evangeline Lilly. I don't care for that actress. You guys may remember her as what was her name in Lost? Like, it was Jack and Kate. Her name was Kate. Boy, did she suck. I wonder if she's gonna be in yeah, she's probably gonna be in yeah, they'll probably put her in Infinity War. They're gonna put everybody in Infinity War. It's gonna be interesting. Is this an Infinity War list? Sorry. As we continue to number 4. This happened in the 70s in Australia. I was about 14. Mom and Dad and the other kids had gone somewhere, and I was alone in the house, out in the suburbs surrounded by bushland at night. I was reading books in my bedroom when I noticed a bit of noise. I could only just barely hear it, but there was definitely a noise. Sounded like it was coming from inside the house. But the TV was off, and we didn't have a radio. Suddenly, everything was scary. A moment ago I was having a good time. Now everything felt wrong. I put my book down and crept as silently as I could out into the hallway. Lucky my door was open because the bloody thing creaked. Once out in the hallway, the noise became clear. I still couldn't quite figure out what it was, but it was definitely not my imagination. It sounded like it was coming from the kitchen, and the only way there was through the living room. So I took a deep breath, crept around the corner of the hallway and into the living room. I'm on the balls of my feet, trying to avoid making a noise. Now I'm here, and I can see the living room is empty. But the noise is louder still. It's definitely coming from the kitchen, and even worse, I can now tell what the noise is. It's 2 voices, and they're having a whispered argument. Now I'm seriously scared. The only explanation I can think of is robbers. I spent about 5 minutes just standing stock still in the living room before deciding to try and peek around the corner into the kitchen. Why you need a look, nigga? Hide for your life. So as quietly as I can, I creep towards the corner. I'm moving very silently. I've even got my mouth open in case my breath gives me away. I reach the corner and just stick one eye around, and the kitchen is empty. But I can still hear the voices. They're louder than ever. I can almost make out what they're arguing about now. Again, I stand there, This time I'm telling myself I don't believe in ghosts. And I didn't. Yet, how the fuck can two invisible men be having an argument in the kitchen? In the end, I start to move again, because I know if I don't do this, I won't be sleeping tonight. I creep into the kitchen and realize the voices are coming from the stove. Now this was in the 70s, before stoves had those solid tops that we have nowadays. Instead, they had a steel coil. I bend down, put my ear close, and discover the voices are coming from where the metal coil joins some electric plug before going back inside the stove. The voices are indeed two people arguing. They're on the same kind of radio, they're on some kind of radio talk show. When my parents came home, I showed the other kids how if you put your ear down real close to the stove, you could hear radio. I'm 55 now, and this is still the most frightened I've ever been in my whole life. Somebody said, the best part of the story is how you refer to your own siblings as the, aka your parents' offspring, as the other kids. As long as I got a laugh from a Reddit commenter. These stories are killing me. Oh boy. As we continue up and pretty much put a bow on this list of 30 plus creepy personal horror stories, we arrive at number 3. Like this video, yeah. You scared something's gonna happen to you? It might just happen tonight if you don't give it that light. Uh-oh. I used to rent a room in a basement apartment. My friend's family lived in the real house upstairs, which is how I ended up there. They have a lot of family parties. They're first generation Filipino. Family parties are a frequent thing. One day I was doing some homework in my room and the other 2 tenants weren't home, so I had apartment B to myself. But they were being so loud upstairs. I was having trouble focusing. So much chatter and feet moving around, it sounded like dancing was going on. I texted my friend, "You guys sound like you're really having a good time up there. I'm not really getting anything done. Can I come up?" He texts back, "Nobody is home. We are Filipino." Sorry. Wind it down. We went to Wisconsin for the weekend. I went outside, saw that no one's car was there and no lights were on in the house, and then I just went for a walk until someone else got home. Oh boy. They found human bones there this summer. What? What? As we approach and conclude this list with the final 2. Last year I was renting a house in a small, economically depressed old mining town in Appalachia. I lived alone. On one of the first warm nights of the spring, I woke at around 4 a.m. to the sound of my doorknob turning. I figured someone must have the wrong address, but it kept turning persistently. I didn't have a peephole or window to see who was outside, so I just approached the door from the inside yelling, "Wrong place, buddy." Then the door started shaking violently, and a hand began punching it. I tried one last time. "Wrong place. Go away, man." Someone on the other side growled at me and started making horrifying noises like a wild animal. I grabbed a kitchen knife and called the police, then waited inside. About 10 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. I opened it cautiously to see an officer who questioned me about the incident. Then he asked me to close it again and remain inside. Again, I couldn't see what was happening out there, so I turned out the lights and waited quietly with the knife in my hand. For about 20 minutes, there was just silence. Then out of nowhere, my living room window screen started to get pushed inside, and the curtain started to move. The guy was pushing out the screen and trying to climb inside. I held the knife and yelled, "I'm gonna kill you!" in my most threatening voice possible. Thankfully, I immediately heard, "Get on the ground! Show me those hands! Show me those hands! You're gonna see the hands!" I heard another horrible wail from outside as the guy was presumably tackled and taken to a police car. A few minutes later, there's another knock on the door. The officer was able to tell me that the suspect had been captured. This guy was a uniformed cop, but he was visibly trembling and super pale. I still hadn't seen what the intruder looked like. The next day I ran into the officer while he was off duty, it's a small town, and he told me that the suspect had told them that his name was Jason Voorhees? Probably a meth addict or some other type of drug user. Those habits don't go well with delusions involving slasher film characters. Boy. Math. I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight. 50 of you here. I wish 50 of you an amazing day. I hope that you're not too stressed. Hope everything works out. Thank those of you who are here. Thank those of you who watch after. And thank all of you who like the video. Uh-oh, wrong splash image. Special thanks to everybody who is a patron. You guys are really keeping the wheels turning around here. You guys are paying all these bills, you know what I mean? Keeping the lights on around here. Special thanks to all the sponsors as well. You know, I can't get enough of you. On top of that, I'd like to specifically thank Fat Man for his sexy, thick donation tonight. I can't get enough of that. It's all about the Fat Man. Jeez. Just for Fat Man, I'll share with you a meme that I made today. Are you ready? Goes a little something like this. It's actually pretty annoying, but brace yourself. When explanations on what constitutes a dead meme give you strength, so this is the power of Ultra Ebola. Yeah. Stop making memes, Kyle. As we complete the list of 30 plus creepy personal horror stories, we arrive at number 1. One night I was waiting for something to finish in the oven, so I started washing dishes. Once my food was cooked, I sat in front of the TV to eat dinner.
See you, Space Sile.
Thank you, Prelude. You know I enjoy those bebop references. One night I was waiting for something to finish in the oven, so I start washing dishes. Once my food is cooked, I sat in front of the TV to eat dinner. I lived about 15 miles out of town and don't have any close neighbors. I could hear what sounded like a truck idling. Because I'm in the middle of nowhere, sound travels. Sometimes something that's a mile away sounds like it's pretty close, so I didn't pay much attention. It idled for about 5 to 10 minutes, then sounded like it was slowly driving away, then briefly stopping, then slowing, driving off again. I've got a long driveway, about a third of a mile, so it sounded like someone drove down my driveway, then turned back onto the road and drove off. Whatever. After dinner, I went back to finish the dishes and had no water. The only thing I can think of was that maybe the breaker had tripped for the well. On the pole outside, there's a breaker box that only has a couple of switches and a main switch. The smaller switches control the well pump and an outlet. The main line to the house isn't on that switch. It goes to the breaker box inside the house. I get to the breaker box outside and the door is open and the main breaker is off. So the noise I heard was someone shutting off the breaker and waiting outside. I guess they thought it would shut off power to the house and I'd come outside to investigate. I locked my gate for the night, and then again when I left for work the next morning. It rained most of the day, and when I got home, I could see where someone had pulled up the gate, found it locked, then did a 3-point turn around in my driveway. I locked my gate at night for a long time after that, but I always lock it when I'm away and keep a shotgun and a .357 handy now. Sometimes nothing's scarier than actual crooks out there trying to get what you have, be they under the influence of substances or otherwise. I hope you all enjoyed this list, and if you did, that's good for you, you know. I'm not going to ask you to do anything for it. Live your life, Jesus Christ. I'm just glad that you guys have a distraction, because that's what I'm here for. That being said, I hope you have a fantastic day or evening, and if it's winding down right now, then I hope yours tomorrow is pleasant as well. Here's to us trying not to worry too much about what's going on in life, but kind of make it up to the bar that we've set for ourselves. Ooh, boy. So there's that. Hello, and thank you, Alana Napast. Unless it's Alana Napast. Someone says the ball's in your court, Hollywood. They really do look like a good cast for Beavis and Butthead. Why is this so good? They look like a great cast for Beavis and Butthead. Holy shit. I would watch the fuck out of that movie. Get Mike Judge involved before he's dead. Mike Judge is alive, right? Mike Judge is alive, right? Oh boy. Well, guys, I love ya. The stripes just say Splatoon? Girl, you gonna have to catch me play that in the daytime. Oh boy. Like say it says he's alive. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I can't play Bloodborne. I haven't even downloaded it. You guys know me, man. It's hard for me to play anything that's not Monster Hunter. That's the trick. That's the comedy. So I'm gonna end this list so it stays nice and neat. And get at me in the Discord or in the Snapchat. Whoa. Dr. Scam says Jackbox. I mean, guys, after a creepy list, let this live. I love you, and I'll catch you guys soon. I may start up a Monster Hunter stream soon or something. We'll figure it out together. Love you. Have a wonderful night.